All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Lars Henriksen. I am with eXp Realty. Thanks for tuning in today. This is FYR University. We do this every Monday morning at 9 a.m. East Coast time, sharing our wisdom and knowledge with all of you. I want to thank you for tuning in today. And today we're going to talk about leveraging your listing. This is one of I believe, one of the most important skill sets to have as a real estate professional. And you'll see why in a little bit, why this is such a powerful technique. I like to think about generating leads as kind of like a pyramid. And remember the old food pyramids where it says, fruits and vegetables and protein. And Christine Dunn can tell us better how that falls out these days. But in real estate prospecting, most of our business will come from our sphere of influence and from referrals. So think about that as being the base of your pyramid, that you have an abundance of opportunity with your sphere and your referrals, your database. And then for me, the next level was finding listings from current listings. So ideally, that will be my listing. Um, and it could be somebody that you work with, their listing with their permission, which we'll talk about. It could be with the permission of a listing agent with your company. It could be a listing that's a new listing in a neighborhood. So we'll talk about that. And then I was a big fan of calling expired and canceled listings. So that was kind of above this particular level. And then above that could have been for sale by owner. Some of you are really good at with internet leads, relocation leads. And what I found is that the most sustainable business model were the first two. We're calling your sphere of influence, and we have plenty of classes on that, on how to have the 30 touches a year, how to cultivate those relationships within your database. For me, I got most of my business from my sphere of influence, from referrals, as well as from getting business from my listings. So if you think about it, if you're in a neighborhood and you live across the street from a house that has a for sale sign, what is the one thing that consumers want to know? They want to know how much the house is selling for, right? And so if they're very interested, most consumers these days will just go online and they'll look it up. They'll go to Zillow or all kinds of websites, and they'll find out that information. So how much is it? When is it available? They may go to an open house to see it. So here's what I did. I wouldn't wait for the sign to go up. I wouldn't wait for them to find the information somewhere else. What I did, and I'll explain in a little bit, is I wanted to make sure that everyone in that neighborhood knew about the listing before the sign went up. Okay. So what do agents normally do? They normally don't do that. They usually get bogged down with paperwork. They spend all this time and money making fancy brochures. And if you think about it, if it's a well-staged house in good condition and it's priced to sell, the brochure will not help sell the house. So spending money on brochures, marketing, and if the consumer, if the seller in this case doesn't see value in what the agent's doing, they may want to cut their commission. And then they anxiously wait for the phone to ring, or they wonder why the phone's not ringing. So what you'll learn today is how to generate excitement within that neighborhood while your sign is in the yard. Okay. So what do listing specialists do? So let me move you guys over to the other side here. All right. So what do we do? Well, when I had a new listing, I wanted to be the neighborhood expert while my sign was in the yard. So what I did is I got a lay of the land by looking at public tax records. So the concept is for every neighbor that will see my sign in the yard while my listing is active, I want to make sure that they know about the listing. They have the information about the listing, the price, the special features, bedrooms and bathrooms, the address. And what I did is I pulled up public tax records for that street. And I wanted to know who lived where, how long they had lived there, what they paid for their house. And so that when I called, I knew who I should call first. So I'll give you an example. People that have just moved into a neighborhood 6 months ago, they probably aren't moving. They may want to know about the new listing because of their investment. They probably don't know the neighbors yet. So I want to connect with them. The people that have lived there for 25 years, they probably will not be moving either. They may be, putting their house into an estate, maybe giving it to their kids, but they're not moving anytime soon either. They might be. But those people will know, for the most part, they will know the history of that street. So those are good people to call. And then the people to really zero in on are the people that have lived there for the last 7 to 10 years, because we know statistically that the odds of them moving are pretty good at that point. So I use public tax records to do my research. And I would sort it by usually by transfer date. So in our MLS, in Bread MLS, you can do that. You can do it by transfer date. You can sort the records and public tax records that way. You can do it by address. You can do it by transfer value. So when I did it by transfer date, I could see who had lived there the longest, and I could also see what they paid for their house. And if it was a value of zero, it usually meant that that property had been put into an estate or into maybe it was a deed of gift. So, with that in mind, I then looked at the map. Now, we call this 5-5-10, and I'll tell you a little story in a little bit about 50-50-100. So 5-5-10 means the five neighbors on either side of the house and the 10 people across the street. Those are the people that I want to connect with. And folks, I know by keeping tallies that when I called 20 neighbors in a neighborhood, I would know that there are two neighbors that are very likely to be moving within the next 3 to 6 months. Okay, maybe even sooner. And so if I called 20 people, I had two opportunities to have listing appointments while my sign was in the yard with that active listing. I also knew that there would be maybe 16 of them that were not moving. They may or may not know somebody that was thinking about buying in that neighborhood. I wanted to connect with them. And then there were always one or two crazy neighbors that when you called them, they would say, if you ever call me back, I'm going to poke your eyes out. How dare you? So I'm going to give you some a good technique on how to handle that as well. Okay. And you can use other apps like homes.com to look up information. So here's what I did. Whenever I had a new listing, I would explain to my sellers that I was going to contact all of the neighbors to let them know about the house for sale. It may be that I was doing a neighbors only open house, which is a great idea in communities where there's active lifestyle and that it's more of a party oriented type of neighborhood. So that's a good thing to do. Um, and so I was adding value on my listing appointment, explaining to the sellers, these are all the things that I'm doing to make sure that we don't leave any stone unturned. And I want to make sure that your neighbors know about the house because quite often they will know someone that is thinking about moving into the neighborhood. Okay. And you don't always have an opportunity to choose your neighbor. So that added value on my listing appointment. And what I did is that I would then get my list out of neighbors to either call or door knock. And I would make the call before the sign went up. Okay, because that way it is breaking news. The neighbors, when I called them, and I'll give you the dialogue in a minute, when I called them, they felt like they were getting the inside scoop. And I know that neighbors, they're a lot of us are nosy neighbors. We want to know how much the home is selling for. We might even want to know why they're moving. Okay, so you make that call before the listing becomes old news. And it's also a good opportunity to connect with neighbors before you send out a just listed mailer, which we'll talk about. And then also before you do the open house for either the public open house or for neighbors only. Okay, you guys with me?
Mhm.
All right. So, what to say? Well, I'm going to give you that information here in a second. So, you want to provide information about the new listing. It doesn't have to be elaborate. I always say don't sell with blah, blah, blah when just blah will do. So, you want to keep it short and sweet. You want to get on the phone and off the phone as quickly as you can because you're making 20 calls. You should be able to make these calls within about an hour to hour and 15 minutes for the entire 20 people. It's new news if you call before the sign goes up. And then I'm going to teach you how to get permission for the next contact. So when you call them back, you have already gotten permission to call them back. And you want to reach out the second call when the property goes under contract. We'll talk about single offers and multiple offers. And then I'm going to reach out again when the property closes. Now, other contacts that you should be making, I mentioned the just listed and just sold mailers. Those are very effective, not just in the neighborhood. You should also be sending them to your sphere of influence because you want to demonstrate to your sphere that you are in the business of listing and selling property. And the best way for them to know that is to see that you have listings that are active, and then a few weeks later, they are either under contract or sold. And then when I couldn't find a phone number, I would go door knocking. It's a great use of your time. You can buy door hangers that will either indicate the property information, or you can use it to invite neighbors to an open house. And let's talk about open houses for a minute. In neighborhoods, as I mentioned earlier, where it seems like there's a lot of activity, single family homes, and it looks like it might be a high-end neighborhood where they might like wine and cheese parties. Well, I love the idea of having open houses for neighbors only. It could be the Thursday or Friday evening before your public open house, because that way you're separating the neighbors from the buyer prospects on the weekend open houses. So I would recommend getting a title sponsor or a lender sponsor to help you out with the cost. A lot of cases, that's going to be absolutely $0 out of your pocket if you get a good lender and a title company or another vendor to support you. And I can pretty much guarantee you when you do that, not only will you meet the neighbors, you will also be getting listing opportunities in that neighborhood within the next 3 to 6 months. That's how it works. All right. So here's your first call. Let me move my folks out of the way here. All right. So when I had a new listing, I have the listing agreement signed. Ideally, my sign is going up maybe in the next day or two. I have not sent out a just listed postcard yet. And here's my dialogue. It's good morning. This is Lars Henriksen with eXp Realty. The reason I'm calling this morning is that I wanted to let you know about a brand new listing in your neighborhood. It's 123 Main Street. We just listed it for $800,000. It's a 4 bedroom, 3.5 bathroom home with a beautiful walkout basement. Now, at that point, I'm going to catch my breath. I'm going to listen to the reaction. So I would say that maybe a third of the time you're going to get a very positive response. Oh, really? I didn't know that the Jones were moving. And then you might say, so quite often folks have friends or family members that are interested in moving into a neighborhood, and I was just wondering who you might know. Okay. And they're going to think, well, I can't think of anybody. Or it could be, my cousin has been trying to get into this neighborhood for months and months. Which address is it again? And they're going to show interest. Because in a lot of our markets, especially a couple of years ago, not so much in this market in 2025, we still have this though in Northern Virginia where we have multiple offer situations. And in that case, maybe the neighbor's cousin is very interested in that house. So you just generated an opportunity to work with a buyer. Okay. If they don't know anyone, then you could say, would you mind keeping your ears and eyes open for me? This is a great opportunity for you to choose your new neighbor. Okay. Now, some of the calls that I've made in the past, I'll get the response of, hey, honey, did you hear that? The Jones are moving and their house is $800,000. We always knew when their house went on the market, we had the same model. We wanted to follow them. So we're very interested. Would you keep us in mind? Would you mind coming over to tell us how much our home is worth? So you're generating that opportunity that you otherwise wouldn't have. Okay. And so the question is, would you mind keeping your ears and eyes open for me and my sellers? Most reasonable people are going to say, sure thing. Wonderful. So thank you so much. My name is Lars Henriksen, and my number is 703-220-1876. Thank you so much and have a great day. Okay, so that's call number one. Now, you're going to get, as I mentioned, about 5 to 10% of the time, you will get the angry neighbor. Okay, there's just angry people out there. And is it your fault that they're upset today? Probably not. right? So when I would get that, I had a lot of ways to handle that. The best way to handle it is to be professional and to say, let me ask you a question. When you sell your house, is this a service that you expect your listing agent to provide you? Okay. So is this a service that you would expect your listing agent to provide for you? And usually that's going to calm them down. Now, I had other ways to handle that. Yeah, but I would always be professional and polite. Okay. So that's your first call. All right. Easy enough. All right. Now let me walk you through the next call before I go on to that next slide. I want you to think about this. I just made that call. Let's say that I called 20 people. I'm going to leave a message if I don't get a live body. I want to make the call in the morning. I want to get that out of the way. Generating leads, I think, is always best in the morning. And this was part of my daily call routine. So I would call usually in my days as a selling agent, I would call 5 people in my sphere of influence first, and then if I had a listing to call around in the neighborhood, I would start making those calls around 9 a.m. Okay, and there are a lot of folks that work at home. You are going to run into situations where you can't find phone numbers. I know that, and so that's why door knocking is such an effective tool as well. Um, Okay, so let's go on to the next call. The next call is going to be when it goes under contract. So I want you to think about it. If I've called 20 people, and it could be more, think about the listing on the corner of the entrance of a neighborhood. Everybody that sees that sign is somebody that I want to connect with. So while the house is on the market and my sign is in the yard, and that's really the best form of advertising is a yard sign, then I want to make sure I'm connecting with everybody that will drive by that sign for the 4 to 6 weeks that that house is on the market and in play. So let's say that I have a ratified contract. I'm going to call back on my second call to thank people for keeping their ears and eyes open, even if I didn't hear from them. I'll get to that call in a minute. I want you to think about, as I mentioned a minute ago, when you have multiple offers and you're the listing agent. So let's say that I got 10 offers on 123 Main Street, and now I need to call the other agents back to tell them those 9 that didn't get the offer. I would call them back and I'd say, hey, Randy, thank you so much for submitting your offer. I met with my sellers last night, and they went with another offer. And Randy's going to be like, "Oh, Lars, why didn't you tell me? I thought we had it. I thought we made a good offer." Yeah, I know, I know. I'm going to align with them and be empathetic. Let me ask you a question, Randy. I'm working on getting another listing in that neighborhood. Are they really fixated on that neighborhood? Is that the neighborhood they really want? And if Randy says yes, then I'll say, I'll be sure to keep you on my list when I get that next listing. I promise. Okay. That kind of softens the blow of them not getting their offer accepted. So I had to call 9 people back and, be a professional, call the folks back that didn't get their offer accepted. So I've got 10 offers. I ratified one. I've got 9 families whose needs have gone unmet. So keep that in mind when you make the call back on that second call. If you only get one offer, it's ratified, then I would make that second call after all of the contingencies have been removed. So that might take a couple of weeks. Okay. And folks, I just want to remind you that this is one of the best uses of your time. It really is, making these calls either on the phone or door knocking face to face. Okay. So here's call number 2. So let's say that I only received one offer. It was ratified a couple of weeks ago. I got the home inspection done. The appraisal's been done. The financing looks good. It looks like it's clear sailing to closing. I'm going to call them back with this dialogue. And one thing that I don't want to laugh because I've seen this happen too many times with agents. I never put an under contract sign writer on my listing. Okay. And the reason is I did not want the phone to stop ringing. So once I put it under contract sign writer on the sign, the phone's not going to ring as much, right? So I would explain to my seller that I want to make sure that we capture any other interested parties, and by putting an under contract sign writer on my sign, those odds go way down. Now you still have to change it in the MLS per your MLS regulations, There's no regulation saying that you have to put an under contract sign writer on your sign once it goes under contract. That's all ego driven, in my opinion. And I've seen way too many times when the eager agent drives out to their listing that's an hour and a half away to put the under contract sign writer up, only to have the contract fall apart. Okay, and they have to drive back and take the under contract sign writer off. So you don't want to be that agent. Let the phone keep ringing. Okay, so here's how the call goes. Good morning. This is Lars Henriksen with eXp Realty, and I'm calling to let you know that we found buyers for the home at 123 Main Street. And I was just calling this morning to thank you so much for keeping your ears and eyes open. We really appreciate it. Now you might get the, oh, great. How much did it sell for? Well, actually, I can't disclose the sales price until settlement. Would you like to know once it goes to closing? That'll happen in a couple of weeks. And most people will say, absolutely, let me know. So great. Now I have permission for that next contact. Now they could have said when I called the first time that they had mentioned that you may be moving this summer. So when would be a good time for us to meet? So close for that appointment. Okay, folks, this happens when you make these calls or when you door knock. You will be amazed at how many um, opportunities you have in that neighborhood. Now, I remember the first time I did this on a big scale. It was in good old Leesburg, Virginia. This was a long time ago when I was a selling agent. And I'll never forget this, folks. I want to share this story with you. I was I received a USAA relocation lead in a neighborhood called Potomac Station. Some of you know Potomac Station. And it was right when it was turning over the first time. So this is great in neighborhoods where there's a high turnover, when people are selling. And so when you hit a new subdivision, after about 7 years, you're going to start to see that neighborhood really turn over. So I got the lead. I had to pay the heinous, 40% referral fee and all the other fees attached to a relocation lead. And I didn't bellyache over it. What I did is I used this technique to generate more leads. So I used the 5-5-10 approach, leveraging my listing. And folks, I got 9 more listings in that neighborhood within a 3-month period. Okay. I became the neighborhood superstar. I had never intended to sell in Potomac Station. I didn't live there. They had power lines going down this road where my radio always cut out. So, but guess what? I didn't care. It was all about helping people with their housing needs. So, another good opportunity is if you're working with the buyer, and this is if I was a dual agent, and in Virginia that's still allowed. So if I was a dual agent representing the buyer, and they had young kids or maybe they had pets, then I would also, with my buyer's permission, invite them to a get to know your new neighbor pizza party. Again, you can get a lender and a title company to help you sponsor that. And that's a great way for your new buyers in the neighborhood to meet families, especially families with kids and families with dogs. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now, let's say that it was that other scenario where I received multiple offers. Well, then the call is a little different. So it's ring, ring. Good morning. This is Lars Henriksen with eXp Realty. I just want to let you know that we've ratified an offer on your neighbor's house, and there were 9 other offers. So right now, there are 9 families looking to move into your neighborhood. I was just wondering, who do you know that might be moving this summer? And folks, if I called or door knocked enough homes, guess what? I always found 1 or 2 people that were moving. It's just amazing how this works. Okay. And if you don't make the call, then that consumer is probably going to go somewhere else. If you go back into your ninja selling class, some of that took that, remember that the consumer will usually choose the agent who they've had the most recent contact with. Okay. It's all about top of mind. So you don't want to lose that opportunity. And folks, you will. And if you've ever driven around neighborhoods and you've seen the same listing agent with 3 or 4 or 5 listings, it's because they did a great job marketing in that neighborhood. And they don't have to be that one agent that sells every home, because really that doesn't really exist. Okay. Some agents are really good at farming neighborhoods. They get a lot of listings. That doesn't mean you can't break into that neighborhood with a new listing. Okay. So let's go to call three. So call three is when the contract's ratified and it's gone to settlement. Okay. And now I am calling the neighbors back with the information that they really want to know. The list price is one thing, but what did it sell for? So, good morning, Randy. It's Lars over at EXP. Hey, Lars. Now, the reason I'm saying Randy is because guess what? I'm on a first name basis with the majority of the neighborhood at that point. Okay. Because why? Because they got my just listed call. Then they got a just listed postcard. So they put a name with a face and they can see it's a nice postcard. And they received the nice under contract thank you call, which was the second call. They may have seen me over there at the property. Don't be a wallflower. When you're over in the neighborhood, go out and meet some of the neighbors if people are walking around. Okay. Let them know that you're a professional, that's you, that's whose name is on the sign. Say, hey, good morning, Randy. It's Lars. Hey, Lars. Hey, I'm calling you with the good news. We closed yesterday, and the house we had listed on 123 Main Street, we had it listed for $800,000, Randy. You might remember that. Well, it actually settled for $858,000. There were multiple offers, so we actually got a lot more over list price. Um, Now, Randy, you had mentioned that you thought that the Millers might be moving down the street, might be moving this summer. Would you mind if I contacted them with your permission, I could use your name? Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful. So I'll be sure to do that. Or it could be you had mentioned that you folks were thinking about moving to North Carolina this fall. When's a good time for us to come by, for me to come by and meet with you? So close for the appointment. And then again, if appropriate, hey, I'd like to invite you to the pizza party to meet your new neighbors. We're going to have it a week from Saturday, and they've got two young children that are moving into the elementary school, and they've got a beautiful chocolate lab that I want you to meet. Okay, great. Look forward to meeting you. All right. Yeah, let me see. The next piece of information I want to share with you is this. As I mentioned earlier, you want to take note of this. So, why are you calling me? Well, a marketing service that I provide my sellers is actively making contacts every single day to specific markets or for move up buyers for their homes. So, when you sell your house, would this be a service that you'd like and expect from your agent? Okay, so flip the shoes because I think that most people, most sellers would want their agent to really work hard for them to make sure that we're contacting as many people about their listing. Okay. As I mentioned earlier, the second call, the under contract thank you call, you make that when the property goes under contract. So if you only receive one offer, I would make that second call after all the contingencies have been removed. When you receive multiple offers, which many of you are still receiving, you want to make that second call after that primary offer has been ratified. So we received eight other offers. So right now there are eight families whose needs have not been met. Who do you know that might be moving this summer? And I like the who do you know? We call that wopening, asking open-ended questions. So who do you know that might be moving this summer, as opposed to do you know anyone? So who do you know gets them to think. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna stop sharing here and open it up for any questions, and then I'm gonna give you one other wonderful bit um, of skill sets. So, any questions, comments? How many of you, and please feel free if you can unmute yourself if you like to share any experiences you've had with making these calls.
I've had one,
Who's that?
me, Ivy.
Oh, hey, Ivy.
I've had one where I did the 5-5-10 calls and I left a message and I got a call back from one of them and said, "Hey, we're thinking of selling and stuff." So that worked out good. I was surprised to actually get a call back from a message.
Mhm.
So
So I can tell you that this works 100% of the time. And if you don't use it, it won't work 100% of the time. So I'm going to give you a quick story about somebody that I had a lot of respect for. I still do, even though he's not with us any longer. Um, his name was Wes Foster. And so I call this 5510. And so Wes owned, as most of you know, he owned Long and Foster. And probably 12 years ago, he was at one of my sales meetings. And I love telling this story because you know what? If you can learn from some really great leaders in our industry. That puts you on the fast track to success, in my opinion. So Wes was out at a sales meeting in Leesburg, Virginia one morning, and he came up to the podium, and we were all, wearing our Sunday's finest clothes for the sales meeting. And Wes had a kind of a Southern drawl, and he liked it when offices and agents used his affiliated services. That's where he made a lot of money. And so he's up at the podium. He also knew that I love teaching classes. And so he's up at the podium, and he was asking questions like, y'all using RGS? Yep, what? Good, good. What about prosperity? Thank you, thank you, thank you. Y'all doing, and he had this whole list of things that he was going over with us. And we were all, yeah, yes, Wes, yes, we're doing that, we're doing that. And he was kind of running out of things to ask us. And at that point, we were kind of batting 1,000. And and then he looked out and he said, y'all doing the 50-50-100? And we all looked at each other like, what? 50-50-100? Like, we didn't know what he was talking about. I thought it was like some new home warranty or some, triple play if you use all the affiliates. And we all kind of had this look on our face like we didn't know what he was talking about. And so he looked down at me and he said, they know about the 50-50-100, don't they? And I said, oh, you mean 5-5-10? He said, no, damn it, 50-50-100. So if you think about it, it's not limited to 20 people. Wes Foster understood that the best form of advertising was the yard sign. And you want to take advantage of that. I remember when I was a listing agent, I would almost get disappointed if the listing went quickly because, sometimes you get busy and you don't take the time to make those calls. So, folks, be deliberate with your business. Put it in your schedule to make these calls and make them before the sign goes up. Okay, so now I'm going to give you a little bit of a bonus. I'm going to give you, in honor of Mike Ferry's 50th anniversary this year as a real estate coach, I'm going to give you his qualifying the listing appointment script. Okay, so last we had Christine says, put it in a time block. Don't schedule anything else over it. I love that. Absolutely. So I was in my office last week and I get a call from Las Vegas, and I always recognize the Mike Ferry organization's phone number. So I answered the phone. I love role playing, by the way. If anybody ever wants to have a role playing partner, just hit me up. I will schedule time to do that with you. So I saw it was Mike Ferry's organization, and they were calling to invite me to. It turned out to be his 50th anniversary event in Las Vegas. I'm a big fan of Mike. I'm a big fan of Tom Ferry. There's a lot of coaches out there that I really have a lot of respect for. And as an agent, 30 years ago, I was um, a huge fan of Mike's. I took all his classes, listened to all of his scripts and dialogue. So the phone rings, and it was, "Hey, Lars, Paul over at the Mike Ferry organization." And instead of saying, "Hey, Paul, what do you want?" I said, "Paul, do you absolutely have to sell your house?" And he said, "What? No, no, I'm not moving." "Will you price it to sell?" "Oh, oh, okay. Yes, I will. Would you like me to handle it for you?" Okay. And then he laughed and I said, "You know who taught me that? Mike Ferry, 25 years ago. That's Mike's 30-second listing appointment." Okay. "Do you absolutely have to sell your house? Will you price it to sell? Would you like me to handle it for you?" So I'm gonna go over with you the qualifying the listing appointment script. Okay. And if I can figure it out, I'll put it in the chat. So I need a role playing partner. So who's brave today to be my role playing partner? It's really easy. Suzanne Fox, are you there? You want to role play with me?
I'll do it, Lars.
Just writing down all your notes. So
You're the best. Thank you. Good morning. So what I want to do is, so I have a listing appointment, okay? And I want to find out as much as I need to so I can go on the appointment, okay? And so I have the notes in front of me. However, I've memorized it so that I don't have to read it. I'm just going to do it, okay?
Yep.
And on my handout, I will share with you that all great salespeople qualify their prospects. Okay. So you're going to qualify your leads because you're a great salesperson. I do that with buyers. I do that with sellers. I want to find out enough information so that when I go on the appointment, I am ready. I can do a net sheet for them. I know where they're moving, et cetera. So you'll see how this works. Okay. So
Great.
let's say that I've generated the lead. It could have been a referral. It could have been from somebody, a past client. It could also be somebody that I just met by doing the 5, 5, 10, or as Wes said, 50, 50, 100. Okay. So I'm going to say, so Suzanne, and she's the seller, and she's unmuted herself again.
I thought somebody else was handling it. Go ahead.
Okay, you good?
Mhm.
You thought it was a different Suzanne Fox. I'm with you.
No, I just heard somebody answering you. That's all.
Okay, so Suzanne, so I'm on the phone with her. So Suzanne, before I come out tomorrow at 10 a.m., there are a couple of really important questions I need to ask you, okay?
Okay.
Okay, wonderful. So the first is, did you plan on interviewing more than one agent for the job of selling your home?
I did not.
Okay, wonderful. And by the way, off script, that's the number one answer. So
Mhm.
some people interview two or three, most people interview just one, okay, especially if it's a referral or a past client. So did you plan on interviewing more than one agent for the job of selling your home? So that's right out of the gate. Now, why do I ask that? I ask that because I want to know who else she's interviewing, right? Isn't that a good thing to do? So if Suzanne said yes, then I have what my friend Dirk Zeller, who is a great sales trainer out in the Northwest of the United States, he wrote the book Real Estate for Dummies. So good guy to learn from. So Dirk's philosophy is that you can't have a single track script. You need to have a multi-track in case Suzanne had said, yeah, I'm actually interviewing three. Then I'm going to say, hey, that's great. I'm going to align with her. Hey, that's wonderful. Hurry, what other companies are you interviewing? And she's going to tell me, well, I'm interviewing Weichert and Coldwell Banker. Okay, wonderful. Good to know. Would you do me a favor, Suzanne?
Sure.
Could I be the first one you interview?
Sure.
Wonderful. And I want to go in first. Why? Because I am a great salesperson. I don't want someone who's better than me to come in before me and then get the listing. Okay, I don't want that to happen.
Okay.
I also don't want to be the middle one. You never want to be the second of third. You should either be first or third, first or last, okay? Not in the middle. All right, just keep that in mind. So she said she's not. Okay, wonderful. So Suzanne, if what I say makes sense and we can agree on the price, are you planning to list your home with me when I come over tomorrow at 10?
Well, I want to hear what you have to say first.
Okay, wonderful. So tell me again, where are you moving to?
Oh, Greece.
You're moving to Greece?
Yeah.
Excellent. And Suzanne, how soon do you need to be there?
Oh, I don't have a timeline.
You don't have a timeline. Okay. So when I see you, how much did you want to list your home for?
Um, 1,025,000.
1,025,000. Okay. Well, Suzanne, just to let you know, as a real estate professional, I study homes and prices every single day. And therefore, I'm going to assume that you will list your home with me at a price that will cause it to sell. Is that correct?
Correct.
Wonderful. So how much do you think you want to sell your home for?
Whatever the market bears, I guess. I don't
Okay,
know.
good. I like that. Wonderful. And Suzanne, about how much do you own the property?
About 400,000.
About 400,000. Okay. Had you ever thought about selling it yourself?
I have actually.
Okay, good. So will you help finance the home for the buyer, or did you need the cash out?
I'd rather have the cash out.
You want the cash out? Okay. And would you quickly describe your home for me?
Leesburg home, Northwest sector, close to downtown. Um, 5 beds, 3.5 baths. Beautiful road, beautiful neighbors. No HOA, no H1 district.
Wow, sounds wonderful. Is there anything positive or negative that could affect the price?
There's a little bit of road construction out there because they're putting in sidewalks, but that's a short-term issue.
Okay, when is that going to be done?
Slated to be done, the town, sometime this year, I suppose. They, the town keeps pushing the deadline back, but it's been under construction for a while.
Okay. So Suzanne, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your home?
I would say an 8.
Wow, an 8. Okay. What would make it a 10 other than the sidewalk?
Oh, just a couple of upgrades, I think.
A couple of upgrades? Okay.
Mhm.
Anything specific?
Probably a new roof.
A new roof.
Mhm.
Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, I suppose just the basic things, put in some new carpet, redo the wood floors, that kind of thing.
Okay. Alrighty. What will you need from me, if anything, to help you make a decision?
I don't think I need anything. I pretty much have decided. It's the timing.
Just the timing. Okay, wonderful. I'm going to email you some information about me and my company. Would you take a couple of minutes to look at it?
Sure.
Wonderful. And do you have any questions before I come over tomorrow?
I don't, but if I think of any, I know where to contact you.
Okay. And I've only spoken to you, Suzanne. Will all of the decision makers be there?
They will.
Wonderful. Just to let you know, our meeting tomorrow will take anywhere from 5 to 45 minutes, including all the paperwork. Okay.
Okay,
Great. I'll see you tomorrow at 10.
great.
Okay. So let's review. Now, Suzanne, did you feel comfortable in that conversation?
I did.
Okay. So I pretty much stuck to the script. I did deviate a little bit. So that's all about having a multi-track script. Very important, which is why you want to practice it. Okay. So even though I had the notes in front of me, I've practiced this enough. So I wanted to be in more of a conversational tone with Suzanne. I want to review a couple of points. So the first one I mentioned earlier, which was right out of the gate, I was asking her if she was going to interview more than one agent for the job of selling her home. I explained why that was so important. The second one, I love this question. So let me go back and repeat it. So if what I say makes sense, and if we can agree on price, are you planning to list your home with me when I come over tomorrow at 10? So, folks, that is called neuro-linguistic programming. I embedded a command within that question, which is what? Which is list your home with me. So when you practice this, if what I say makes sense, there's a pregnant pause there, and we can agree on price, pregnant pause there. Are you planning to, pregnant pause, list your home with me when I come over tomorrow at 10? Okay. And she said, maybe. And then I want to know where she's moving. I want to know how soon she needs to be there because that's all about timelines and deadlines. Okay. So now I know, and I'm going to dig a little deeper when I meet with her about the move. So I'm going to see how she feels about it or what she thinks about it. I'm going to ask her a little bit more to tell me a little bit more about why Greece. I want her to get excited. I want to keep her focused forward on the move.
Mhm.
So now I know her timeline. Now she had some flexibility. That's good to know going in. And then I asked her how much she wanted to list her home for,
Mhm.
and she already had a ballpark figure. It sounds like she has some inside information um, with pricing, which was good. So she's done her homework. And then I want to use this as a professional real estate agent. I study homes and prices every day. Therefore, I'm going to assume that you will list your home with me at a price that will cost it to sell. Is that correct? Okay. Now I sped that up a little bit. I didn't do it as quickly with Suzanne because she doesn't talk that quickly. Okay. So I love that because again, it's list with me. It's another embedded command within that question. And then number 6 was, so about how much do you owe on the property? So that could be sensitive for some people. That's why I kind of wait until middle of the questioning to ask her that question. But guess what, folks? Now I can do a seller net sheet. I
Mhm.
already know her other costs. I just don't know how much she owes on the property, and now I know. All right. And then I said, so how much do you want to sell your home for? So that's always different than the list price, right? List prices are arbitrary. The sales price is what the market is willing to bear. So, and then I said, have you ever thought about selling it yourself? I always think about like Columbo or Jiminy Glick, when I ask that question. So, had you ever thought about selling it yourself? So she said, actually, I did. And I said, okay, and I moved on. So a lot of times when I ask that question, what happens? They'll say, oh my gosh, we tried that, years ago in Boston. It was a disaster. We ended up getting sued. We didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know about disclosures because that is reinforcing to the consumer. That's reinforcing why it's such a good idea to list their home with you, a professional. Okay. And then she wanted the cash out. I got her to quickly describe her home. She talked a lot about the sidewalk. Is that really happening, Suzanne?
It is. It's
We know
yeah,
some people
it
with the
is.
town. Let me make some calls for you. And then I got her to rate her home on a scale of 1 to 10. Nobody lives in a 10 home. Nobody does. Even Bo Derek doesn't live in a 10 home. There's always going to be issues with homes. So then I got her to tell me what she needed. She needs a new roof. She had some other things, carpeting, flooring, because now when I show her the comps, I can emphasize that the homes that are better priced that have those are probably a better value because they have the new roof, they have the new flooring, and hers doesn't, right? So now I can make a better comparison when I do my CMA. I asked her what she would need from me, if anything, to help her make a decision. She's already made up her mind. She's already going to use me. I love that. And then I'm going to email her some information. So, folks, have a very solid pre-listing package that you can email to the to your seller prospect. Okay. So take time, invest your time and resources into doing that. And then she said that she didn't have any questions before I come over. So here's what happens. When she said, when I asked her, "Do you have any questions before I come over tomorrow at 10?" She didn't have any. Let's say that she did have some questions. Okay. Then I am not going to handle those questions over the phone. I am going to say, "Great, thanks for that. I'll be sure to cover that." So what are those questions usually? It's usually commission. It's usually marketing. It could be, have you sold any other homes in our neighborhood?
Mhm.
Questions like that. You want to handle those when you're face to face. You don't want to do it over the phone. So selling is so the phone is used for generating leads and qualifying leads. It's not for selling. Okay. So if she's had questions, I would say I'll be sure to cover those when I come over tomorrow. And I want to make sure that it's not just Suzanne and maybe her husband is out golfing. I want to make sure that I'm with both of them.
Mhm.
Okay. And she said that he would be there as well. And I said, just to let you know, our meeting will take anywhere from 5 to 45 minutes, including all the paperwork. I'm now setting the table for her to know what to expect. Why would it only take 5 minutes? Well, maybe I walk in and it's just, I'm not going to list this house. Okay. She wants way too much for it. And it's just, there's a bad feeling. I'm also letting her know it's not going to be a 4 hour meeting. And in Northern Virginia, most people live a fast-paced life in our market. They don't want somebody to come over for 4 hours. Okay. So you can get in and out within 45 minutes. Okay. And that's pretty much it. All right. Any questions? Let me see if there's any comments. Uh, don't have any since Christine. Let's see
I
here.
have a question.
Put it in a time block. Love that. Okay. Who's got a question?
Me,
Who
Suzanne.
does?
Suzanne.
Okay. If this is about getting paid for role playing, it's all volunteer.
No, no, it's not. It's about after a home settles. The question that you had, where it was somebody asked you how much the home was. Of course, it hasn't settled yet, so you can't disclose that. But after the home settles, so, and this is a real life situation for me. I had a multiple offer situation. We actually took an offer that was below list because there was no buyer compensation. Um, and it all worked out to be better for them. They net even what
Mhm.
it would have been above list if we would have done it that way. But are you allowed to disclose things like that, or is it just price that you can disclose to somebody? Because I'm going to get a lot of questions about this. I'm going to get people saying, "I offered this. Why didn't you take mine? Mine was higher." That kind of thing.
Well, it's price and terms of the offer.
Mhm.
So it could be that it was a cash buyer. It could be that there was no sale of home contingency.
Mhm.
Um,
Are you allowed to share that information though?
I wouldn't share that. I would just say it was my seller's decision. I would just keep it very,
Okay.
because it's confidential. And remember that without the seller's permission, that never ends. So you have to maintain confidentiality
Okay.
even beyond the closing date. So I would just say it was my seller's decision. It was a better offer.
Okay.
There were just different terms, but I would keep it very vanilla. I would not elaborate. Okay. Because we've all been there. If you're a buyer agent, we've all been there where our offer did not get accepted. So
Mhm.
yeah, I would keep it simple.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, especially in case the deal falls through. So true, Christine. So Natalie had a question, and then there's an iPhone with a hand raised. I'm not sure who the iPhone is. Is that?
This is me, Priya.
Oh, hi.
How are you? Good morning. As a new agent, sometimes I feel the difficulty when I try to talk to the people, and I says I'm a real estate agent with the EXP Realty. So they like their impression is, oh, I never heard about EXP Realty. So what will be the good dialect to talk about to give them more information about EXP Realty, or make them feel comfortable to get more knowledge about it?
Well, we're the largest cloud-based company in the world. And over the last 3 years, we sold more homes in the United States than any other independent company. So we may not be that big in your area. We're also the fastest growing company in the history of real estate.
Okay.
Yeah, and people, the consumers, they do. Lars, did you pay her to talk about EXP? Oh, that's funny. So and the good news is that we're growing, and I would say to the consumer, in fact, most of my clients, they're hiring me and not my company. I can show you what makes us different. We're a cloud-based company, and we utilize better technology than any other company in the market. And I would just leave it at that. Okay.
Thank
Because in some parts of the country we're huge, other parts of the country we're not. But we are growing in pretty much every state, and now we're in 26, soon to be 27 countries. So, okay. Natalie had a question about phone numbers. So, Natalie, I know there are services where um, um, you can buy phone numbers. There's also the white pages. Some of them are subscription. I know Cindy Burris. Cindy, you have access to phone numbers. You want to chime in on who you're using these days?
Yeah, I still use white pages. I think I pay $7.99 a month. And I think I share it with several people. So they're not real. And the numbers are, I would say about 85%. Sometimes you get one. A lot of times I might talk to a family member and then they're like, oh, let me give you my mom's number. So the white pages works the best for me, and it's the cheapest.
Yeah.
I use white pages too, still. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. We just got a couple of more minutes. Anyone else? I'm going to thank you all for tuning in. I hope this helps. And if you guys need any of this, what I used today was the Mike Ferry's pre-listing qualifying script. Tom, it's funny, his son Tom, who's also an excellence coach, his is very similar. It's just a couple of words changed, but they're all about the same. I like Mike's, and you want to practice it so that you take ownership of it. Okay, this is something that you should absolutely be practicing with your role-playing partner so that you can work on your tonality, especially with questions. When you're asking questions, you always want to end on a downward beat, like Walter Cronkite. So just keep that in mind as you're practicing it. And remember that in most cases, you're going to be on the phone doing this. So tonality is 38% of effective communication. So you want to make sure that you're effective with your tonality. Okay. Any other questions before we wrap it up today? And my email is lars.henriksen@exprealty.com. You can find me there if you need any assistance. And I really appreciate Suzanne, especially big shout out to you for being a great role-playing partner. We only practiced that like 3 hours yesterday, so that was pretty good. Okay. And Judy McHenry, it's good to see you, and Michelle and Ivy and Cindy and yeah. So thank you. I'm heading back to Virginia today.